Paul wrote, "Behold, I lay in Zion a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, and he who believes in him will not be disappointed." So Paul says at the same exact time, Jesus Christ, who is our stone in Zion, the one who died and rose from the dead in Jerusalem, the Messiah who was born of the Jews, is a rock who causes stumbling and who causes offense, and he is also a rock who provides salvation. One that shows us that no person will ever be neutral as to regards the person of Jesus Christ. Every person will either fall before Jesus or they will find safety upon Jesus. And here's the picture of how this rock is meant to look in the context of Isaiah chapter 8. Isaiah 8 prophesied of a coming storm upon the small nations of Israel and Judah. That coming storm is the people of Assyria. Before the Assyrian Empire, the world had never seen a horde of warriors like the Assyrians. The Assyrian Empire destroyed city after city after city, and every time they destroyed a walled city, what they would do at the end of overthrowing that city is they would surround the walls of the city with these giant poles or stakes that they would set up around the boundary of that city. And then they would take the leaders of the city and they would hang them or impale them upon those giant poles. The reason they would do that is to say to everyone else who ever thought to oppose the Assyrians, if you oppose us, it will result in only one thing: brutal death. So do not oppose us. Do not fight against us. We will overwhelm you. And Isaiah describes the coming terror of the Assyrians with these words. Inasmuch as these people, that is Israel, as much as Israel has rejected the gentle flowing waters of Shiloh, that is the worship of the Lord, and rejoice in Rezin and the son of Remaliah, now therefore behold, the Lord is about to bring on them the strong and abundant waters of the Euphrates, even the king of Assyria in all of his glory. And it will rise up over all its channels and go over all its banks. Then it will sweep on into Judah, and it will overflow and pass through it. It will even reach to the necks, and the spread of its wings will fill the breadth of your land, O Emmanuel. Be broken, O peoples, and be shattered. And give ear, all remote places of the earth. Gird yourselves, yet be shattered. Gird yourselves, yet be shattered. And after this prophecy, what Isaiah foretold happened. Assyria swept over Israel and swept over Judah as a flood of abundant waters. Both nations were left broken and shattered, with the only spot that remained was the city of Jerusalem itself. Zion stood as a rock on a hill when the angel of the Lord came and destroyed 185,000 Assyrian warriors in a single night. And so what Paul is saying to us today is, you may try to stand tall. You may try to gird yourself like a warrior on the day of battle, but the flood will crush you. But God has given us a way of salvation. Paul says what that way is in Romans 9:33. Behold, I lay in Zion a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, and he who believes in him will not be disappointed. So here's the image that God and Paul, they are going for with the image of the stone in Zion. That is, Assyria is coming upon us like a flood. And in our universal imagery today, we could say that coming upon us as a flood is all of the trials and tribulations of the curse. Poverty, storms, famine, depression, cancer, fear, lust, anger, bitterness, hatred, shame, every sin in this world, and the result of every sin is coming down upon us. And the final and permanent result of the flood of sin in our lives is death. Now, if before those flood waters arrive, if before the flood waters come, if you run to the stone that was set in Zion, if you run to Jesus Christ and you place your faith upon Him, if you stand and rest upon Jesus Christ, those flood waters will come upon you. Those flood waters will come at you, but instead of overwhelming you, if you are set on the rock of Christ, the flood waters will sweep towards you and then around you and behind you, but they will not overwhelm you because you are resting on the rock that is higher than the flood waters, and the only rock that is above the waters of our sin is Christ. But if instead of resting upon the rock that is Christ, if you say, you know what? I can handle these flood waters. And here's what I'm going to do to handle these flood waters. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get good and strong. I'm going to work out. I'm going to get great at swimming. And then I'm going to get on the right gear so I'm ready for those flood waters. I'm going to get the right sandals with cleats on them so I can brace myself in the mud and in the rocks and get ready for that flood water to come. I'll probably even get a life jacket on so I can float if the flood waters push me away. If you do everything you can, you work out, you get in shape, you wear the right clothes, and then the flood waters come upon you. Even though you've worked through work, even though you've prepared through acts of righteousness, through deeds of the law to survive the flood that is the curse, no matter how strong you are, no matter how well equipped you are, the flood waters will sweep you off your feet and take you down into the flood waters. And as you're being swept along with those flood waters, you will come upon the stone that is Christ. But instead of resting upon the stone, if you are hurtled with the flood waters against that stone, it will crush you in judgment. It will destroy you in your sin. And so the call today is to believe in Jesus Christ, to rest upon that stone that God set in Jerusalem. And if we rest upon the stone that is in Christ, we will be able to stand against the floods of the curse because we are not standing in our own strength, but we are resting upon the rock that is Christ.